My name is John Paul Sisumbiling. I report Chapter 3, Lesson 3, Collecting, Making, Tagging, and Preserving Evidence. Responding team should be knowledgeable on the proper action to be done on specific kinds of evidence found in the scene of the crime. The proper methods in collecting, making, tagging, and preserving evidence that must be observed are the following. Collecting in physical evidence. All items that were found in the crime scene should be collected. Small pieces of evidence also must have to be given importance, thus collecting them necessary. Bisan gagmay na evidence, dapat matagaan gihapon og importansya kay it may have the right evidence na gipangita or maaring mao ang makagib or kasagutan sa nahitabo sa crime. Blood is an important evidence in homicide, assaults, robberies, or other cases where it may be spilled, categorized into major groups of A, B, AB, and O. They have three collecting of blood: collecting liquid of blood, collecting of dried blood, and collecting wet blood and clotting. Blood collecting of liquid blood. A. Use clean disposable pipette or eyedropper for each sample. Next, place sample in a container tapos iwasan pagkakaroon ng airspace sa sample at maaring mag-dry ito. Next, if the amount of blood is minimal, collection may best be made by placing the sample in a normal saline solution. 1 tablespoon of salt in 1 quart of distilled water. Next, then ilagay sa ref as soon as possible. Next, do not mix areas where samples are collected. Next, higit sa lahat, iwasang madumihan ang sample. Collection of dried blood. A. Sa absorbent surfaces, bring the entire object at dalhin ito sa laboratory. Next, sa non-absorbent surfaces, scrape up the sample of the sample and place in sa lalagyan if possible or submit the entire eyeline. Next, if i-scrap for surface, i-scrap din ang portion hanggang sa walang maiwan na blood at ilagay sa ibang lalagyan for control in case some substance on the surface causes difficulty in test. Collection of wet blood on clothing. A. Do not fold the clothing as it may destroy the stain pattern. Next, do not package while the stain is still wet. Next, allow the clothing to dry in a room before packaging. Next, do not expose the sunlight or high temperature as they may destroy factors which will determine blood typing. Hair may be found anywhere in the crime scene, also on the clothing of victim and suspect who have come into physical contact. It can be very important evidence, especially in rape cases. Collection of hair. Take sample of head hair from the top, the back, and each side of the head. Next, take by combing, pulling, or cutting close to it. Next, take the list of dozen of hair from each location. In rape cases, take 2 samples from both the victims and the suspects. The first is taken by combing and the seconds is by cutting and pulling. Next, each of these samples should be collected in the separate containers and proper, properly labeled. Next, identify hair carefully as the exact location found. Next, do not mix hair found in several locations. Next, place the hair in the folded paper and put it the envelope in a glass vial and seal. And next, do not tape the hair to an object as it will alter the hair of the destroy and distress adhering to it. Fingernail scraping. In cases where physical contact has been made, this should be obtained. Items sometimes found under fingernails include fibers, hair, and skin, which may be typed for its blood group. Collection of fingernail. A. Linisan ang fingernail gamit ang malinis na fingernail file. Next, please be scraping from each finger on already labeled paper which notation of which finger it come from. Next, place the scraping from each finger in a separate envelope or glass vial. Next, fingernail scraping should be obtained from both the victim and the suspect. And next, if the subject's hand is contaminated with blood, note this is the container. Fiber is excellent as tracing evidence when clotting cross contamination takes place. Examination of fiber determines whether it is a natural or a synthetic material, the color and dye used. Trends may be examined to determine a twist number of strands and cloth weave. Collection of fiber. Treat and package fibers in the same manners as hair. Next, be extremely careful not to cross-contaminate during the collection process. Next, collect the clothing which is considered to be the source of fibers. And next, do not shake the items as they may dislodge the fibers. Glass. It usually examined to determine if both of evidence sample and the no standard as the same physical properties and trace elements as impurities. Collection of glass. A. Kolektahin ang lahat ng broken glass sa crime scene. Next, package the individually in glass vials and envelopes. C. In hit and run cases, collect all broken glasses to ensure the possibility of a physical match should fragments be found in suspect vehicles. Firearms can provide vital evidence and specific answer to feasible question and case. Collection of firearms. Firearm must be handled carefully, not only as a safety measure, but to avoid disturbing any evidence they may provide. Next, they must be properly marked for later identification. Next, never insert anything in the barrel as they may damage the identifying characters and dislodge material which may be inside the barrel. Next, pick up the weapon by the trigger guard or check grip so as not to disturb any fingerprint. Next, unload but do not wipe or clean the weapon. Next, when unloading, carefully record the location of fired, unfired, and misfired cartridge. Next, record the serial numbers as records the serial numbers description of the firearms. Next, firearms with no serial number should be marked with initial on the receiver or the underside of the barrel. Next, never use X or other non-invisible type of making. Next, do not mark the weapon on any easily removable part such as the stock or grip. Next, use direction as not disfinger the weapon. Bullet. It can provide information about the make and type of ammunition and weapon from which the bullet was fired and whether or not with fired in a specific weapon. Collection of bullet. A. Handle the bullet so not to damage the markers. B. If the bullets lodge sa kahoy or similar material, putulin ito at dalhin sa laboratory. Next, at autopsies, request the use of hands or rubber trip force to minimize the possibility of damage to bullet. D. Balutin sa isa't isa ng tissue in cotton para hindi madamage at ilagay sa lalagyan. Cartridge case. Provide vital information as to the type of weapon used, the type of ammunition, and whether or not the case was fired in a specific weapon. Collection of cartridge case. A. Handle cartridge cases so as not to add by scratches or marks. Next, warp each separately to prevent damage. And next, be sure to note specific location in which each was found. Seminal stain. It can sometimes found on clothing, blankets, sheets. It is also a biological evidence like blood. It must be collected properly, maintain its integrity. Collection of seminal stain. A. Allow any stain to air dry, warp in proper paper, and package evidence in paper bags. Do not use plastic bags. Next, for sex evidence cases, the victim should always be examined by physician. A sexual assault evidence collection kit is used to collect evidence from the victim. Next, label all garments such as undershorts, panties, or others exhibits and package garments separately. Next, if damp, allow fabric to dry completely before packaging. And next, handle fabric as little as possible. Marking of physical evidence. It is an individual mark with in the initial of the investigator. The marking tool depends upon the nature of the evidence. If it is hard objects such as metals, the initial are scratched or engraved by use of sharp-pointed steel called stylus. General rules in making tools or objects as physical evidence. 1. Mark with initial or recovering officer. 2. Never use X. 3. Record any serial number if applicable, and other distinct mark. 4. Mark the object without damage. 5. Always mark the container in which the object is placed even if object itself is already marked. 6. When tags are used, make corresponding entry in the tag and attach it securely to the object. Marking of firearms related evidence. Revolvers. Tape should also be put around the bore and the frame of the gun with signature of the investigator. Pistols. Tape must also be put around the gun with signature to avoid changing the parts of the gun that may affect the result of laboratory examination. Refills should be marked on the barrel, frame, magazine, or bolt or slide. All magazine and accessories should be marked. Fire empty shell and misfired cartridge. It must be marked near the mouth of the fired empty shells, not on the body or base. Bullet slugs or ball pellets can be marked of the give or nose as well as in the base, not on the body or bearing surface. Tagging evidence. All evidence which by nature could not be marked on each surface such as bloods, hair, fibers, and the like are properly stored in an appropriate container. Tagging of physical evidence as being done with the use of hardware, the initial of investigator. Date, type and collection, specific case, and the other information are written. D. Preserving physical evidence. Perishable material should be preserved along the way, or the preservation is an order to reach the court in the same physical condition as when they were collected from the crime scene. This is the work of laboratory technician or SOCO team. It includes preservation of tool marks. Next, preservation of controlled substances and medical preparation. Next, preservation of question documents. And next, preservation of latent fingerprints. 3 types of fingerprints that can be found in a crime scene. Latent fingerprints, patent fingerprints, and plastic fingerprints. Latent fingerprints are made of the sweat and oil on the skin surface, invisible to the naked eye, and requires additional processing in order to be seen. Patent fingerprints can be made by blood, grease, ink, or dirt, and easily visible to the human eye. Plastic fingerprints. Our three-dimensional impression can be made by impressing your fingers in fresh paint, wax, soap, or tar. That's all. Thank you.